Hi, I recently picked up this Xbox limited edition crystal. So I haven't actually owned one of these before, I've only ever owned the black Xboxes. And I'm pretty excited to see what I can do with this one. It doesn't appear that it's ever been opened. The stickers and the labels are still intact, which means it shouldn't be modded. So I've picked up a Xenium clone mod to pop in it as well. And it's in pretty average shape, a little bit dirty, and I can see some rusting on the RF shields, which I should try to clean up. It's probably also going to need a recap because I don't believe it works. It was as is, which usually means not working. So yeah, come on, let's go and figure it out. Okay, over on the bench, and we can get a bit of a better look at it, and you can see that it is pretty scungy. It looks very dirty. Can do with a very good wash, but also, like on this side in particular, you can see that that RF shield is not in the best of condition. Normally that wouldn't bother me, but because this is a crystal, you can see it from the outside. Yeah, look at all the rust on the inside there. So this is obviously sat in a pretty moist environment for a while. Oh wow, look at that, it's still got the plastic over the front. I'm gonna have to do a Techmoan style peel off of that in a little bit, but for now, let's get some power to it. I've got my cable here, and we'll see what happens. Oh, I can hear it sparking when I plug it in. That's a good sign. At least electricity is flowing to it. But no life, yeah, as expected. This looks like it's actually missing a foot. I didn't notice that before. That's a bit of a bummer. Oh well. Alrighty, so we should be open. And now one thing I didn't mention earlier is just based on the date. So this is late September 2004. So this should be a, I mean most of the limited crystals were as well, but this should be a 1.6 edition. Okay. It's not too bad inside so far. So it's got a Phillips drive. And yeah, you can see that that pitting and the surface rust there now a little bit better. So there's our hard drive unit. It is the size that it is. Doesn't actually say, but I'm sure I'd be able to look up the WB80EB. I'm guessing it's going to be an 80 gig from that, but I don't know off the top of my head. Put that to the side. You can already see some bulging caps down in here, so that's not a good sign, but pretty much expected. And now let's get the CD drive out. Oh, DVD drive, sorry. Alright, so looking inside, it actually looks pretty okay. Definitely unmodded. Here's our clock capacitor, the 1 farad Nichicon, which actually looks in great shape, hasn't leaked or anything. None of these over here. I think we just need to replace these input power caps here. This one looks like it's already started leaking and all of these are bulged. The power supply caps look pristine, no problems there. So I think these are going to be our main problems. So those ones are 3300 6.3 volts. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them. So I've got a couple of little caps underneath these cables here, but they look fine as well. So yeah, this actually looks like it's in pretty damn good shape inside. Except for that RF shield and just a few caps. I don't think this is going to be much of a problem at all. And then we've got our LPC debug port here, which I'll need to take this board out to do the recap regardless, but in the kit that I've got here, it has the LPC rebuild, so I'll need to put that on the bottom. And then the executor, not the executor, this is a Xenium clone, so it's not an open Xenium, and it's a Xenium that is a clone from the original 2006 Xeniums, so that will go that way, I believe. I'll have to look it up, but I think it goes that way. Or it might go that way. But yeah, okay, so I'm going to need to get this board out so that I can replace these 5 capacitors and see how we go. Let's get some power in there. I'm going to be very careful not to stick my fingies in there. There's our power. Alright, let's test some connectors. No. This will be our, oh, there's our 5 volts. Okay. So I think this power supply does work, and it's just going to be those busted input caps there that are our problem. So once I do a recap on this, it should come up nice, and then I'll do the modding, and then we'll probably clean the case, but yeah, let's do a full teardown for now. So I just wanted to point out one thing that you really need to be careful about when you take this power supply out. I took this out maybe 5 minutes ago now, but you can see this enormous capacitor here. This is the input capacitor, and it can charge up to 400 volts. So what I'll do, I'll just pull out my multimeter here. Like I said, I pulled this about 5 minutes ago, DC volts, and it still has 70 volts stored in it. It is coming down slowly, so there is a bleed resistor in here, but like I said, that was 5 minutes ago. So if I pulled this out immediately and touch those 2 prongs, I could get the full, I mean in Australia it'd be 240, 250 volts, charge this capacitor across my fingies, and that is not a good thing. So be very careful when you take these power supplies out. Don't touch the bottom, or give it a good hour on the bench to fully dissipate. And I mean, this is a good power supply design. Some power supplies don't have a bleed resistor, and this capacitor can stay charged for a very long time. If you really need to get it done super quick, you can do the old route of just shorting it with a screwdriver. It can be sometimes kind of scary, like that. And again, that was probably 60 volts by this point. Imagine the full 240 volt charge. So safer way obviously is doing it with a proper resistor across the 2 leads, but it's still very dangerous to do so. It's much safer, just leave it on the bench, unplugged for an hour or more before disassembling. Okay, handheld Nick here, just at the laundry tub, and I've got the bits of the Xbox all fully disassembled now. So these are the metal shields. You can see this is the underside of the top piece, and it's actually kind of clean on this side, but on the outside, yeah, it's got all that icky rust. So, and same underneath here. So this is the inside of the bottom case one, and yeah, where the power supply was, it had a extra little bit of shielding. That is nice, but over here it's disgusting, and yeah, on the sides it's kind of also gross. So I'll give these a wash because there is some corrosion, like proper rust, dirt and everything in here. But I'm not sure what I'll be doing to try to combat that actual rust on the shields. I might end up soaking them in vinegar or hitting them with a bit of really ultra-fine steel wool, maybe some Barkeeper's Friend, I don't know yet, I'll have to figure that out. But then I've got the top cases, oh sorry, the plastics. So there's the main top case, big one, with the front fascia and the DVD drive cover, and then I've got the bottom case underneath there as well, everything fully out. So I'm going to fill this tub with some warm water and probably Simple Green, and just give everything a fantastic good old scrub, and then probably a dry out in the sun. Hanging up on the line is the power supply, to dry, and the mainboard as well. I gotta say, it's come up pretty good looking. Beautifully nice and clear. That's gonna look fab. I just need the sun to come out to dry it properly. Okay, so I've got the board cleaned up. I've just finished replacing the power caps down here and the clock capacitor up here, and you can see the removed ones up there. These power caps were a bitch to get out. Massive pad right there is all power, and on the other side is ground, and just a massive heat sink. It took me, yeah, a very long time, but I got them all out cleanly, and we've got the power supply. It's plugged into power, very precarious. I'm going to try not to touch it, and we've got it plugged into the board. I've got nothing else plugged in except the front connector. So all I want to do right now is just check that it's actually powering on, because previously it wasn't even doing that. So I don't know what I'm actually going to expect here, some kind of flashing, but all I'm looking for really is that fan at the back powers on, and it gives a sign of life. So let's hit the power button and see what happens. Oh yes, look at that. Fan spin, and we've got red and green flashing, which I'm guessing is the system complaining because it doesn't have, well, anything. It's missing, well, everything else. So that's good. That's awesome. So what I might do now is I'm going to take this board back out and I'm going to install our Xenium. Okay, I actually just changed my mind. Before I install the mod chip, I just want to actually test that this does work, and I'm not modding a system that has some other problems. So I've slapped everything back together. There are no screws. It is just held together with, well, nothing. But it is back together. Everything's plugged back in. So we should get a solid light on here, and hopefully we can open this drive as well, because I'll give that a test, because if we can't do that, then I need to replace the belt in this drive, but we'll see. So here we go. Good sign. Oh yeah, we've got the Xbox startup. That looks good. Let's see if the drive will open. Ah, perfect. Uphill and everything. Looks like we don't need to replace the optical drive. That's a fantastic sign. Okay. And yeah, boots up to the clock screen. Let me just pop my controller in. Don't want to run this too long because I just do have the heat sinks kind of resting. Controller. Yeah, that works well too. And hey, have a quick look around and see what's on here. Yeah, not bad. Ooh. Deer Hunter, NFS Underground. Ah, great game. Rugby, surf. Oh, someone like their sports games. Yeah, no, this looks good. All right, now I'm going to mod it. Alrighty, board is back out, and we have our chip. Now, this is the Xenium, and it's not the original Xenium, and it's not the open Xenium. This is a clone of the original Xenium. So I wouldn't recommend getting this one. I'd probably recommend finding an open Xenium because it's newer. But this is, yeah, like I said, it's a clone of the original Xenium mod chip. But yeah, anyway. It's a little bit hard to find instructions on how to install this because the original instructions don't really exist on the internet that well anymore, but you can find them. And it has two installation options. I can either put it on the board and just solder pads through like that, which is a bit more of a permanent install, or I can add some headers, which it actually includes here, to the board, and then it can sit like that, I think it is. Yeah, I'll have to figure out the pin orientation for that. But because the LPC, which is the header here, I think it's the low pin count header, or the SM bus, it's effectively the debug port on the Xbox. Over the years, Microsoft blocked and removed pins from that header. So this is the 1.6, the latest revision, which means that header is effectively useless and I need to rebuild it, which is where these come in. So now normally I would need to, well, back in the day especially, you would scratch off little vias and run little jumper wires here and there. But now we have what is known as a LPC rebuilder. This one's the Xenium LPC. And what this does is let's get that out of the bag, connects on the back of the board. There's our LPC header there, like so. And it, I don't know if you can see very well, but it actually lines up to the pinholes there. And then you can see, like that connection up there lines up to that via perfectly. This one lines up to this via perfectly. And then there's that one that lines up to that via perfectly, and so forth and so on. And that actually just grabs the connections that you would normally need to wire in. And then you put your pin headers through and then wire it straight down to this. And that just makes it easy and done, and you don't have to run little wires and everything, and it sits nice and flush. It's got little cutouts for components that get in the way. Really, really great little board. I love this. This is the kind of modern engineering that I can get behind. So yeah, let's get that in there first of all. So the first thing I'm going to do is get that aligned. I'm just going to tack in probably this pad right on the end here, because it's really, well, it's nice and solid. Take that off for a second, get some new leaded solder to replace the lead-free that's on the board here. Get that nice and ready. Put this in place and then just tack that in. And that will hold that in place. Yeah, nice. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in and grab this other point that's on the opposite corner here. So I'm going to have to do this really carefully. You know what, these are so small, I might do it on my microscope because I have a microscope to play around with now. One moment. Okay, Xenium LPC rebuild is complete. So you'll also notice that what I didn't do was solder down the pin headers here because I am going to be putting some pin headers up through there and that's when they'll get soldered in. Now, with the 1.6 and the install method that I'm using, because I'm not picking up, one of the pins that I do need to pick up still is D0 here. So the LPC has already picked it up from this pad, but it doesn't connect it to the LPC header, it just connects it to this pad here. So now what I need to do is on the mod itself, there's numerous places where you can hook that back up. So there's a D0 pad, D0 pad right there, DO. There's a D0 pad on the bottom here, or you can use one of these connectors which goes into that plug right there, and then you can hook this wire up. And this is the method that I'm going to use. Focus, there we go. This is the method that I'm going to use. So what I'm going to do, if we can see that that white wire is our D0, and what you can notice is that these two pads right here are surreptitiously close to these two through holes, and they are not used in the pin headers. So what I will be doing is threading these two wires through these holes like so, and they pop out there just in the right spot to fold over and solder down to those pads like that. So that's how I'm going to do that. Yeah, so now the other thing that I need to do is get one of these pin headers. I'm not 100% sure why this kit included two, since we only ever need to use one, but there we go. So there's a trick here as well, because you can't just run this through, it won't go through, because the LPC rebuild actually has this pad right there, that hole, blocked out, and that is a safety feature, because if you connect that pin up, you will either destroy the board or destroy the mod chip. I think it runs constant 5 volts through it, something like that. Anyway, what we need to do is pull that pin out of the header, and it looks like it is this pin right here. If I just grab a pair of pliers, grab that, and just yank, the pin should just come straight out, and then when we pop it on the board, they'll go in flush and ready. Perfect. Okay, and then what I'll do is I will just grab a bit of tape. I've got some washi tape here, and tape that pin header down so that we can solder it in place. Okay, and there we go. Pins all through, ready to solder both onto the Xbox and onto the LPC rebuild. Let's do it. Okay, let's inspect our work. Looks good. They're all connected, both top and bottom rows. And on the top, if we take our tape off, we should get a nice connection. Now, this should go, I believe it's that way. No, it is not, it is this way. Like so. And that D0 connection, plug in like that, then you go down like that. And that's our mod chip installed. Not bad, nice and clean, out of the way, works well. So, let me just finish this all up, tidy it up. I gotta wash down the flux that's on the bottom there and get this back together so that we can test it. Just a quick note, verified that it actually goes this way, so not the other way that I had it. And I verified that by double checking. So I'll show you what I did instead of just doing it and not proving it. Got my multimeter out, put it in continuity mode. So what we're looking for is really where this pin doesn't go anywhere. So you can see that if we're going to attach it to the board like this, and that is the way that it would sit normally, I'll just hang that like that, this pin would connect to this pin would connect to this pin, so forth and so on. So what I want to do is I want to see where they line up to the pin headers. So what I can see is this pin on the end here lines up to the bottom right here, and then this one is at the top here, and this one at the top here, and this one at the bottom here. So if I'm looking for the missing pin here, it would logically be this pin right there. So judging from that, we want to put it like that. Ipso facto, QED, lorem ipsum, etc. So yeah, pop this back together, see how we go. Okay, so I've got it back together. I've just got the board and the thingy there. I've got the heat sinks just kind of loosely placed in. I'm not putting the drive and everything in because I realized before the red and green flashing that I was getting was because I didn't have the video plugged in. But yeah, so front, power, Xenium, AV. Let's hit power and see what we get on the screen. Oh, we get a light out of the Xenium, that's good. Okay, yeah, Xenium make megahertz. See, welcome to Xenium OS 2.3.5. Nice, that's awesome. Okay, cool. So I'm going to, I feel good about this. I'm going to put the whole thing back together, put some Arctic, whatever the hell I've got here, Arctic silver on the heat sinks, and put the clamps back in, put the whole board back together, and yeah, give this thing a run through. Awesome. All right, so it is back together. Now you may note I have decided, and I made the executive decision to not put the RF shielding back in because I couldn't be bothered cleaning it, and I honestly think it looks better like this. So you can actually see all the innards. If I turn it to the side, you can see the power supply there. Underneath, you get to see the PCB and the motherboard. On the front, you can see the drives and all the connectors and all the cables, and yeah, I just think it looks a lot better. And the other thing is that I did not put the feet back on, and I actually took the rubber feet just entirely off because I was missing one anyway, and I decided to use my Ben Heck-esque superpower of owning a laser cutter, and I got some of this something foam, what is it? EVA foam. And yeah, so I just got the laser cutter, measured out these patches, and this is adhesive backed, so I had to cut those out just with a scalpel or a hobby blade, and we've got our feet like that. So what we can do then, just peel off the adhesive backing and pop our feet properly in place. Nice. There we go. Nice and healthy feet, and a fantastic looking Xbox limited edition crystal. That's great. All right, let's get that mod chip fired up and set up. Okay, so mod chip is installed, and now we just have to set it up. So by default, the Xenium mod chip comes pre-installed with the OS, as we saw before when I tested it, but it cannot boot a BIOS. So the built-in BIOS to the Xbox, the stock BIOS, I mean, it will boot it, but it won't allow us to do anything, you know, fun with it, run homebrew and whatnot. So what we need to do is install a custom BIOS that does allow us to boot custom dashboards and things like that. And to do that, I have a couple of tools. So first of all, the mod chip that I bought came with this little Nemesis Xenium USB. So basically it is a USB port that plugs into the controller port, and that allows us to use our USB stick that I've preloaded with a BIOS as a USB stick and access the files therein. And I also have a DVD that I've burnt, which contains, I think it's the Rocky 5 soft mod tools, but this is the extras disc because we've hard modded this Xbox. I don't need to do the soft mod, but the extras disc has some extra bits and pieces that I need for this process. So let's start that. First of all, I'm going to just hit power, and that should boot our Xbox straight into the Xenium OS, because again, nothing's installed, can't do anything. Okay, so now I'll pop my USB stick in. Now the first thing that we want to do is go into the launch menu, add a new item from Flash, and we want to now browse to H drive, because this is the USB drive effectively. And on here you can see a file called M8 plus stock look. So this is the Evolution X M8 BIOS. Now I like the stock look one just because it has the, you know, the flubber animation, it's all green and, you know, looks stock. So let's select that. And then we pick a name, which is just a file name that you want to call it. This is just temporary, so I'm just going to hit done. I don't care right now. And then you get to pick what color the LED on the mod chip itself lights up when this is active. So for now, don't care again, just gonna leave it off. Okay, once that's done, what we're gonna do is gonna open the DVD drive, pop my extras DVD in there. Now, what I'm gonna do as well, this is not, I would not recommend this, and this isn't necessary, it's just what I wanna do. I'm going to format the hard drive because I want to get this Xbox effectively back as close to possible as stock, and that means deleting everything and then reinstalling the stock dashboard once again, which I can do from the extras disk. Again, this isn't recommended because you can brick your Xbox doing this, but I'm going to do it because I know what I'm doing. So what I'm going to do is format partition and format C drive, and you can see that it is not recommended by how many times you have to like select. Are you sure? Are you really sure? Yes, I am. Okay. Format that, then we want to format E as well. Yes. Okay, and then we are going to clear cache spaces as well. Not strictly necessary, but done. Okay, now we get to boot into our DVD. So let's go back to the launch menu and fire up the stock M8 Plus BIOS. And what this would do, it'll boot the Xbox as you see, and it should also boot into the DVD that is in the drive currently, which is, like I said, the extras tools. There we go, soft modding tools, and it should detect that we are running a hard mod, so it's loading the hard mod menu instead. Okay, cool. So, first thing I want to do is reinstall the stock dashboard because I want to get this back as quickly as possible. Now you can, or you're supposed to be able to go into dashboards here where you can install many, you know, custom dashboards, and down the bottom there's MS dashboards. This never seems to work for me, the stock or hacked, it just doesn't install right. So what I do instead is I go into advanced menu and go down to file manager, and then we find the D drive, which is the DVD drive, and browse into softmod, and then dashboards, and MS dash, and then retail, and this zip file right here. Open that up, and then we press the white button and go extract all files to, and we need to browse all the way back out and dump these on the C drive and start. Okay, so that has unzipped that and effectively returned our Xbox back to its absolute factory default. So if we had the retail BIOS running right now, it would be able to just boot back into the normal Xbox dash, and I'll show you that in just a minute. But the next thing that we want to do is we want to install a custom dashboard, because what's the point of having a modified Xbox if you're not going to run that custom dashboard? So let's go back to dashboards, and I want to install Unleash X because it's the one that I prefer. I don't know. I used to use Evolution X, you know, way back in the day, but I prefer Unleash X these days. So let's select that, and we want to install into C dashboard. Yes. go for it. Okay, there's Unleash X installed to C dashboard. Okay, so the other thing that I want to do is add another item, and this time I want to boot from TSOP. So this will allow us to boot straight into the stock ROM, the Xbox fresh. That'll allow us to really easily switch into the stock dashboard in case we need to do things like change system settings, change output, view hard drive memory, things like that. Shouldn't need it that often. You can do a lot of those settings, viewing files and whatnot through the custom dashboard, but things like changing system date time and changing the video output, I find just easier to do in the stock dashboard. So this is really the easiest way to do that. So from TSOP, and that will add our retail kernel. So let's go down and do done. And when we are booted into retail kernel, I actually want the Xbox to light up green. So let's do green. Okay, now I want my Xbox to automatically boot into my M8 Plus. So I can set the default item to M8 Plus BIOS. And then what I'll do is I'll go out into settings. This is the Xenium, the mod chip settings. And I go to Xenium settings and turn on instant boot. So what instant boot does is when you press the power button, it boots the default item. And then if you want to get back into Xenium OS to change any settings, what you do is you boot by pressing the eject button, and that will actually boot straight into this Xenium OS menu, which is kind of handy. But yeah, that's done. So now what we can do is if we turn it off and I hit the power button again, we get our stock look boot. And dumped straight into the Unleash X dashboard, which is fantastic. And then we get to have a poke around and everything. Now, if we wanted to boot back into the stock dashboard, there's two options. We could press the eject button to power on, go into the Xenium menu, go up to that launch menu and select the retail kernel, which would boot that. Or alternatively, what we can do is just go into System here and go to File Explorer, browse to the C and just launch Xbox Dash, which is the stock dashboard file. And that will load into the Xbox dashboard, like so. And then we can muck around with settings and change the clock. My clock's obviously wrong. Video, we're in widescreen, all this stuff that you can change in the Xbox dashboard. And then that's it. So now what I want to do, just to kind of finish the video out, I want to play a little bit of Halo 2, just to properly test this. I'm not really going to install any modded stuff right now because I've got a very long list of things that I want to do, install some emulators, things like that. But for now, yeah, let's just boot some Halo 2 and check that it is actually working properly. God, I love that. The Halo 2 soundtrack is one of my all-time favorite game soundtracks. It's just fantastic. Highly recommend checking it out if you're not familiar with just the soundtrack. But I mean, the game's awesome as well. The campaign, yeah, let's do it. Don't judge me. Here. Well, anyway, as you can see, this works pretty well, and I'm very happy with how it's turned out. I'm gonna probably cut the video here and keep playing some Halo really badly, because I'm terrible at this game. So that is my Xbox limited edition Crystal. I'm really happy with how this turned out. It is beautifully clean, and without the RF shield, I think it looks really cool as well. Yeah, got the mod installed, it's booting, running games. Couldn't be happier. This is going straight on my entertainment unit, and I think it's going to have a permanent life plugged into the TV, because I love my original Xbox. Thanks for watching.